The Blind Tony Story, Book 8, Chapter 5. Delisha and Forey returned, and a fragile truce ensued. Both of us had achieved victory in our own individual way. Delisha had put her foot down and let me know that she was not going to tolerate my drugging behavior, even if she had to call the police. I, on the other hand, had let her know in front of the police that I was not going to be intimidated or told what to do by her or the police in my own home, especially when I was paying all the bills. Both of us won, but both of us had lost in reality because marriage is a oneness, and once the oneness is gone, everybody loses, especially Forey. In our rush to assert our own selfish individuality, neither one of us had taken the time or given much thought to the effect our actions would have on him. Needless to say, he was cool, a real trooper. In fact, it was right around this time that a very strange thing occurred. One night I had came home feeling beat down and dejected. I was hurting mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, socially, and I was crying outside deep within as I lay in the bed next to Forey and Delisha. I thought they were asleep, but he put his little arms around my neck and asked me, "Daddy, what's wrong?" I didn't say a word, but I was crying inside, and it seemed like he could sense it because his next statement really blew my mind. He said, "Daddy, if you need money, I'm going to give you $100 million." Wow. My inner tears suddenly became outward streams of water freely flowing down my face. And he continued to rub my back and say, "Daddy, it's going to be all right." I put my arms around his little body and kissed him and told him that I loved him. Unconditional love, once again given by a small child at one of the lowest points in my entire existence. It's true, God uses small things to accomplish the big things. And love does cover a multitude of sins. Azra had done it before him, and Nisi had done it too. Every time it seems like they were the adults and I was the child, God always seems to send me a ray of sunlight at the darkest times in my life. And many times it has come in the form of simple words spoken in love by a child. I guess that's why I prefer dealing with children as opposed to adults. Their love is so pure, unadulterated, unconditional, direct, pure. Forey's words also were deeply reminiscent of Dolores' words in San Francisco a long time ago when she asked me what was wrong and if I needed money and then offered to lend me some. God has always stood by my side, even in the midst of my wildest insanity. It must have been my mother's prayers, or maybe my father's, because it definitely wasn't mine. Anyway, right around this time, we also lost a car. It had been towed away twice, but this time it would cost more to get it back than it was worth. New York makes a lot of money towing away people's cars. That's why they have to travel with an armed escort, because people get pissed off and they're ready to fight back. Anyway, we lost the car though. Shortly after this time, Delicia's mother came to stay with us from Trinidad, and that was a very enjoyable time. I know most men don't like their mother-in-laws very much, but I truly loved mine. She stayed with us for about a month, and she taught me how to bake fresh bread. And I started baking fresh bread every day. She also got to spend a lot of time with Forey, and that was a pure blessing. However, there is one incident that wasn't so nice that really stands out, and I think I'll relay that to you. There was a girl named Lavinia who called the house and spoke to Delicia and told her to tell me when I got home that I had forgotten to bring Pampers for the baby. She told Delisha that she was my girlfriend and that she had just had a baby by me. When I came through that door, Delisha attacked me in front of her mother. Man, she made a lot of wild accusations. Anyway, there really was a girl named Lavinia, and I did owe her money, $10. But we were never lovers, and she had no children. In fact, she was very much gay. But she wanted to get me back for that $10 I owed her. And she did it in a good way. She made me look really bad in front of Delicia's mother. Anyway, after Delicia's mother left, I got arrested twice in a very short period of time for drug possession. The police knew that the drugs weren't mine, but since I refused to testify against the boss and the dealers, I had to take the weight. When these people get busted for drugs, they shut down for about an hour, and then their back open up again. They're well connected, highly organized, and to testify against them would be nothing but trouble for me and my entire family. I knew that. The cops knew that, and the judge knew that. I was given probation the first time, and they made a pre-sentence evaluation that they were going to deliver before they made a sentence on the second case. And because I was within 1,000 feet of a public school, I was charged with that too, even though it was late at night. Also, the dealers had stashed thousands of vials of crack cocaine in the school dumpsters, and I was charged with that too, even though I didn't even know that it was there. But when the time came for me to get sentenced in court, the judge looked very confused. He had gotten the pre-sentence report back, and it contained a statement from Merrill Lynch, a character reference. And he said that in all his years on the bench, he had never received a character reference that high on anybody, black or white. The character reference called me a frustrated genius, that if they had any way in their power to ever hire me back again, they definitely would. I was shocked. So was the entire courtroom. The judge said, "You don't belong in jail, but I just can't let you go. So what do you suggest I do with you?" It was unbelievable. He, in essence, was letting me sentence my own self. So I told him that I thought that I needed to be somewhere where I could be subjected to a system of checks and balances concerning my addiction, because cocaine had been my nemesis my whole life. But I didn't need to be locked away in a prison or a program where I experienced total isolation from society as well as drugs, thereby giving me a false sense of security, only to find out upon release that nothing had really been changed in reality. So I was sentenced to attend an outpatient program where I would report every day and have my urine taken every day, and attend groups based on NA and AN recovery steps, and also receive acupuncture treatments daily. They also had an in-house daycare service, so now I could be there with me. They also had music therapy. They also had ceramic classes. It was perfect. They served both breakfast and lunch, and after lunch, you were free to go home. You spent every night at home, and you had to deal with the temptation to use as well as the real world without getting high. One of the directors there was also married to Daruba Shakur, who was one of the New York 21, who I knew from the Black Panther Party days. She also had regular contact with Jimmy, who had first introduced me to the Black Panther Party, and who was now serving a life sentence for the murder of a policeman in Brooklyn. But Jimmy had changed his name to a Muslim name, and he didn't want any contact with the outside world anymore. So he refused to let me visit. But I did write him a letter highlighting how I had self-destructed using drugs. I stayed clean for the next year or so, graduated from the program with honors, and also made a lot of ceramic objects, mainly masks, which I sold and gave away as Christmas gifts. The lady who ran the daycare center dated a drummer from Tito Puente's band, and he asked to speak to me one day, and he told me that he had noticed Now tapping out rhythms, and that in his opinion, Now was a natural drummer. He had a special set of sticks made, and he gave them to Now for Christmas. I bought Now a computerized electronic drum set, complete with headphones, that allowed him to experiment and sample all kinds of rhythms. And he began to play all the time. And it was true, he was a natural drummer. I also met a guy on the tennis courts named John who played guitar. And he and I started playing music together several times a week at his house, reading jazz charts. He had a ton of sheet music, all the old jazz standards, and I would play my flute while he would play his guitar. I started recording all our sessions together, and eventually we started getting pretty good. As a matter of fact, eventually he was scheduled to audition for a jazz band down in the village, and the audition was to take place in the studio. And he asked me to go along with him and to bring my flute. At first I was reluctant to go, but I consented to go. And a funny thing happened. I got hired and he didn't. This opened up a whole new world for me. I was in the studios every week after that. And eventually, I started my own band. We got booked in several clubs. John and I still kept woodshedding, and I kept getting better and better. I also started playing on the streets and on the subways, and sometimes even on the trains. I started averaging from $75 to $150 an hour every day. Life was good, and several other doors opened up for me. I used to post up at 59th Street and Columbus Circle, underground at the chain station there. Now, this is a station where street musicians are not allowed to play. The best musicians in the world pass through this station on their way to the Broadway shows in Lincoln Center and Rockefeller Center and Central Park West and just going back and forth from all the best hotels in New York. I made a lot of contacts and friends there. And even the clerks in the token booths there would accept phone calls from me there, which is a no-no. That never happens. The police never ran me off. And when they tried to, the shop owners would protest. They liked my music and they said I was good for business. I met a man named Mark who paid me to tour with his choir. I also started playing with the Chuck Davis African Dance Company. I was also featured on the Discovery Channel in a documentary on street music. They were filming another documentary close by, and the producer heard my flute, and he liked the sound. I was playing a song by the Beatles yesterday, and it turned out that he had worked with the Beatles, and he loved that song, and he asked me if I would be willing to allow them to film me playing that song, and then consent to them airing it on TV on the Discovery Channel as part of a documentary on street music. I agreed. And they sent their legal staff the next day to meet with me to sign the release forms and agreements. And then I played. They taped, and all went well. I also got paid. Lovely. Life was good.